And here we are. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome to this is the newest segment of Tuesday Chats, which is a conversation with people that I think will definitely benefit from hearing from the people that are in my life. I am Jade Sterling, the women's health coach who helps you to balance your hormones, master your emotions, and create a life you love. And I'm here today with Shelby. And thank you so much for being here all the way from, tell me where you are actually, where you were calling in from.
I'm in Texas in the US,
In
so quite a
Texas.
ways away from you.
Yeah, it is a long way out. And I'm so grateful for your time because we were just saying, you're just like me. You're a mama, you're a homeschooling mama, you're also a partner in life, you're a member of your community, you're running a business, you're doing all the things. And that's really what I'm trying to share out there in the world is a message of how are we all managing in the world? How are we actually putting our messages out into the world? And so, can you just tell us, Shelby, a little bit about like who you serve, the people you serve, and what you do? What I mean, that's so broad, isn't it? Because what you do is like so many things, but the people that you serve particularly and how that fits into your life. Anything you want to share about that?
Yes, so I'm an emotion code body code practitioner, which means I get to help people release their emotions in a non-traditional way and help them find out what's going on a little deeper on the subconscious level, as well as things going on in the body, which sounds like we're going to get to talk about. I love talking about the mind-body connection. And I started off helping moms who were the overwhelmed, burned out, angry mom, because that was my story. But it's kind of evolved into me helping whole families and even getting the husbands and the kids on board, which is really exciting. I did not see that shift in my business, but I had such success with women that they were like pushing their husbands, go see Shelby. And they didn't want to do it because few men want to talk about their emotions or their
Yeah,
feelings.
yeah.
But when they realized they didn't have to talk about it and it wasn't their feelings, it was a tangible emotion that we could, just release, the men started getting on board. And so now I get to help families and not just women, which is really exciting to see the whole shift in the family and not just mom.
That's
So
amazing.
I still do moms too.
Yeah. So wonderful, Shelby. So is it the mum who reaches out to you initially to say, I need like, and who is the, like, what's the story behind the people who come and find you when they need help? What's their story?
So there's kind of two different stories that I end up seeing. She's either at her wit's end, she feels like she's stuck in life, either stuck in depression or stuck in anxiety. She just can't seem to get any forward progress and she's just weighed down. I think we've all been there in the past 5 years to some extent or another.
Hmm.
Or she has so many physical issues that it's almost like she's in constant pain, can't get out of bed. And so she's looking for answers because she can't get them from the doctor or in the medical field.
Ah, yes. Okay. And then she comes to you. And so unpack that for me when you are dealing with, and I suppose let's start with the mum who's just understands she's in mental and emotional burnout. Where do you start with helping her unpack that and heal?
Well, I have a very different approach because emotion code is connecting straight to the subconscious and finding out what's going on in the subconscious mind, like real time, as well as what's been trapped. So she's probably more often than not been to therapy and it didn't work. And I don't know what it's like in your country. Um, but therapy seems to be a little bit hit or miss here. And there's a time and a place for it. I'm not knocking
Yeah.
it. I'm not saying don't go. If that's what you need, please do that because it certainly can be beneficial. And everybody can learn something from therapy, even if we
Mhm.
don't need therapy.
Yeah.
But sometimes what we really just need to know is what's going on upstairs? What is my subconscious doing? And so I'm sorry, all of a sudden I got something in my throat. Um, she has gone to therapy and she's talked, and she feels like she's walked away with tools, but she's never walked away with, sorry, just a minute. I don't know where this is coming
No,
from.
go for it. We need to hydrate. This is a good advertisement for drinking your water, everyone.
We have a storm going on outside. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff kicking
Uh-huh.
up the pollen and the dust in the air.
Oh.
Um, so she's gone to therapy and she's like, but I really just don't feel like I've made any progress or there's been any resolution and I still am and stuck. And part of that is she's talked about what she thinks the problem is. But if the subconscious is holding on to something different, the
Mhm.
subconscious is the more powerful one, and the subconscious is still going to win. So when we can tap into the subconscious and be like, well, what trapped emotions is this person holding on to? And in an emotion code session, I usually get between 15 and 30 emotions released in a person. So you
Wow.
can start to see patterns of, oh, that time of my life is still impacting me.
Uh-huh.
Or I've got this pattern of of nervousness or anxiety or love unreceived or feeling taken for granted because it will show up multiple times at different times. And they're like, oh, yeah, I really feel like that. And then it becomes the perception thing. So then we can explore their thoughts. But when you know exactly what's going on the subconscious level and you agree, you ask the subconscious to let it go, then the body can move on, then the mind can move on. And really the goal is to get the subconscious and the conscious mind working together, but we don't know how to do that, at least not in our
Yes.
society.
Well, how do you approach that subconscious mind? Like how do you actually get to the depths? Because obviously that's the basement, right? How do we get to the
Yes.
basement to be able to release like that's a lot of emotions to work through.
So there are multiple routes. In emotion code, we do it through muscle testing. And that's probably the hardest part for people to grasp because they either get it or they're like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I get it.
Hmm.
I was very skeptical. Sometimes you'll see a nutritionist muscle test for supplements and things like that. But you can get so much deeper in the body than just what supplement does my body need? It can
Mm.
really be what trapped emotion do I have? And
Hmm.
we all got them. It's not a if I have
Yes.
it, we've got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, that's right. It's like,
So we all have trapped emotions.
yeah.
So then you can just ask which trapped emotion is it, what belief is stuck back there. And it's really simple if you can open up to the idea of the muscle testing. There are some other ways that are not as quick and direct by just getting quiet and exploring the emotions. I teach that too, but more in class settings, not, in a one-on-one situation. But if we can just name our emotion, which you would not believe how hard it is for people to do. We've
Yeah.
got like maybe 5 to 8 emotions. That's a Shelby number, not a scientific fact of
Mm.
emotions that the general population can name. But when we can stop and be like, what was I really thinking when that situation happened or when that person said that to me? What was I really feeling? And when
Mm.
we name the emotion, then we can get curious behind it. And it's a little bit longer and harder to get back into the subconscious mind. Well, oh, I was thinking this, or I have this unmet need, or this expectation, or something along those lines. And then you can start getting a sense of what's going on there. The emotion or emotion code, but muscle testing is just more direct and straightforward. And
Mm.
sometimes takes people by surprise because it's so blunt on the paper.
Uh-huh. Because it becomes something tangible and you actually, I suppose, have to acknowledge it, or it's something that then comes into your awareness. You shine a flashlight on that dark place and it's like, whoa, okay, there it is. And it sounds to me like the conversations that I've been having on here have been very much like that. It sounds like the key to the basement is really shining the flashlight in the dark place, is the naming of the emotion. The power in that seems to be huge and transformative. Do you find that is that the moment, or is there a little bit more work once you've actually been able to name it? Is that the biggest bolt breaker? Or, I mean, then we have to go through and feel it, right?
I think naming it is huge. I remember I taught a class a few years ago, and it was an hour class online, and all I did was name emotions and their definitions. And people were like, oh, I did not even know that that's what that emotion meant.
Yeah.
Because we've never, and I just looked it up in the dictionary. It wasn't some special definition. It was just the straight up facts of this is what this emotion means. But when you have to acknowledge your emotion and what it means. And like you said, take ownership for it. All of a sudden, that's mine to deal with. Somebody didn't
Mm.
make me mad, and now we have to stop playing victim. And that's where
Mm.
it really kind of like was like the knife to the heart because the problem has always been out there, or not always, but we have a tendency to point out there. If my kids would just pick up their mess,
Yeah.
if my spouse would stop, if
Yeah.
my boss would only, if the government would just, it's always out there. And
Yeah.
so when I have to take responsibility with my emotions because they are literally trapped in my body, wreaking havoc on me,
Mm.
that is where we start gaining our power.
Oh, I
That's
love
how
it.
you can start shifting your mindset and being like, oh, I might have a part to play here.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. Can I maybe put you on the spot and ask, can you think off the top of your head any emotions and definitions that you can think of specifically that you might be able to share? Like, because I'm just trying to think. I don't know if I've ever myself, I'm definitely help people to label their or name their emotions and then figure out, the thoughts that are behind that to create how they're feeling. But I've never actually thought to have a look at a very practical definition as to what that might mean in order to shine some awareness on that circumstance. So is there anything that you've got off the top of your head?
Well, I just pulled up my emotion code chart. So
Uh-huh.
I'll take a peek at some of these.
Great.
And so there's 36 emotions on this chart. And there's been some where people are like, what does that mean? And
Mm.
they're all words we've heard before, but when you tie it to an emotion or a situation, it's a kind of a little bit different. And I just had somebody recently ask me, now she was from a different culture, so English was not her second language, but peeved came up. And she's
Mm.
like, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, in this sense, it means annoyed, irritated, pissed off. And she's like, oh, oh yeah,
Ah,
that's me. But
ah.
she had never associated it with the word peeved. Or another emotion that's on here is wishy-washy. That one comes up a lot. Now, wishy-washy doesn't seem like an emotion,
Mm.
and I get a lot of confusion on that. What does that mean? But we do it a lot. I
Mm.
might think one thing, but really know I need to behave this way and feel that tug of war. Or I've got two
Yeah.
choices to make and I can't seem to make that choice. So I waffle back and forth and it produces an emotion. That's that
Uh-huh.
wishy-washy emotion. And then we're also stuck
Yeah.
because I can't make a decision or I'm
Yeah.
not sure how to behave. So
Mm.
that one I get a lot of questions on. Um, let's see. Oh, interestingly enough, overwhelm is an
Yes.
emotion that
Yeah, right.
because especially with men, they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I know you're overwhelmed. That they don't know how to verbalize that. And we can be overwhelmed physically with physical ailments, mentally with too many thoughts in our head, or our
Mm.
emotions can flood us. We can feel overwhelmed in our relationships or financially. But again, that's kind of a tricky one because I might have one definition of overwhelm, but each of those places is slightly different and going to have a different sensation in the body on that one.
Yep. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And that makes it be able to, again, just unpack it in a way that's clear. And I can understand probably for men, they would appreciate the ability to make things very facty. And that's my experience, it's just to be able to understand it through more of a rational thought process and reason, as opposed to the feeling and the women actually just understanding that they have these emotions and then being able to move through it. That's really powerful. So once someone's been able to work through and shine the torch in the dark place and be able to recognize all these emotions and then be able to start to heal the process. What's the result, Shelby? Like, what do you have a particular kind of person who comes to you for something very specific, or do you just get the mums in everyday land, because it is quite hard sometimes to pinpoint, because you just think that I get people who just say to me, it's everything. Like there's just no, it's everything. But then other people come and say, look, I'm struggling with my perimenopausal headspace in my career, like brain fog. That's probably the biggest one that I see, my ability to concentrate. So if there's there one particular issue that you're able to gain a result, or is it something that's a little bit more broad for the person that once they've gone through this process with you that they're able to experience?
It's kind of a little bit tailored. There are
Yeah.
some who come in and they're like, I don't even know where to begin. I've
Yeah.
just been overwhelmed or like I'm lost in life. And so we usually just start with an emotion code session where because what I do is a little bit different and it's not for
Mm,
everybody. Some just don't feel comfortable with that. So I always start with an emotion code session. And when they can see, wow, that's 15 to 30 emotions that just literally left my body. Sometimes
mm,
instantaneously, sometimes it's over a period of a couple days while they process. But then they usually come back and they're like, okay, I want to go deeper and explore what's behind that. And
mm.
so that's almost like the next step.
Okay.
But then there are some that are like, no, I specifically need this. And again, either it's emotional, like I know I've got this block here and I need it removed, or I've got this pain that just won't go away, or this issue
Yeah.
that doesn't go away. And a lot of times emotions are a part of that too. So
Yes.
did
Well,
that
I
answer
was going to
that?
ask you, yeah, tell me more about the chronic pain, because it's kind of different when you come and you go, oh, I've got all this emotional stuff in here. And then you can go, here are your emotions and go, yeah, okay, let's work through them. But when someone comes to you and they're actually like, oh no, I've got a physical problem and I can't deal with it, mentally and emotionally. And this is kind of the thing that I really love to look at myself, as I was saying to you, that how our psychology supports our biology. So if someone comes to you in that respect, then how does that look? How does that work?
That goes back to also understanding emotions again, because we, um, I don't know, it's like feelings and emotions are different and
Mm,
they're kind of the same. And we don't want to talk about feelings, or feelings have gotten a bad rap and there's some intangible thing that we can't really seem to grasp. But really, it's an emotion, an emotion, energy in motion. We don't stop to think that each emotion or each feeling, whichever one you want to go with, in my world, it's emotion, it
mm,
has its own frequency. And it really does, because fear is very different than anger. I mean, fear can be underneath anger, but again, you're going to feel it differently in the body. You're
yeah.
going to feel sadness different than you're going to feel insecurity or joy or happiness. They just literally feel different because it has a different vibration. So when you don't process your emotions in a healthy way and you trap them, that frequency is in the body.
Mhm.
And so it can show up as inflammation, problems in an organ or gland. And when you've got a frequency literally in the body, let's say it's in the kidney, and it's vibrating there for years or decades, now you're going to start breaking down into dis-ease or disease. And
Mm.
it's not to say there's not other factors there, but again, it's yeah, it's frequency and vibration.
Yeah.
And we don't stop to think about it like that. And
Mm.
so there is the emotional component to illnesses. And on
Yeah.
the flip side, you can end up with an illness that might even turn long term. And now you've got some mental and emotional, because you might have trapped emotions of hopelessness or things like that because you've been sick for so long. So it
Mm.
does go both ways. And I did have a client who she had cancer. She was referred to me from a holistic practitioner to deal with the emotional side of things. And her subconscious brought up exactly what she did not want to work with, which doesn't always happen on the first session.
Okay.
And she said, I don't want to deal with this. And it was
Mm.
something that had happened decades before.
Right.
She had kind of moved on. And really, like the rest of us would probably be like, that's not a big deal. But to her at that younger age, it was a big deal. And
Mm.
she did not want to face it. And I said, well, it is trapped in you. And she's like, I really don't want to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
So she went back to the holistic practitioner and said, I don't want to deal with the emotional aspect of my cancer. So they sent her to, I don't know, some cancer place outside the country. And she went there to work with her cancer, and they sent her home because she absolutely refused to deal with the emotional part. And they said,
Mm.
if you don't deal with the emotions, we can't help
I
you.
can't
And
help you.
she went home and died a short time later because she would
Oh,
deal with her emotions.
yeah. Okay.
So it
Wow.
really can have an impact on us.
Yeah, that's a really amazing example, I guess, of a journey and how that can actually manifest and the importance of that too. And we do, I feel like there is some kind of an awareness out there in the world now about that, but I don't, I think there's an awareness, but maybe not an understanding. And so the work that you're doing, I think, wow, is so powerful to be able to bring those two together to say, oh, yeah, there's that work there, but actually it really is important. Like we say, and we were talking about the mind body connection. It's, of course, people sort of now say, of course, but we still don't really actually comprehend that. So that's a really powerful example of that. Wow. Can you tell me a little bit, Shelby, just about your own epiphany moment when you realized you needed to do this work, that this work was important and that you were like, I have to help these people, or I have to be doing this. This is the work that I want to do to help people. Can you shed a little light on that, your own story?
There was
And you can be as
probably
candid or as like I know sometimes it's a bit like open the book and people go, oh, but it's as much as you want to share. There's no pressure.
Oh no, I'm not opposed to sharing my story at all at this point in time. Like now I'm like, yes, so let's just get it out there and help people because we live in such a hurting world.
Yeah.
But that was not always the case because when I went through this, I was probably the most resistant person I have ever met in this work. So
Mm.
when somebody comes to me and they're like, I don't know about this, I'm like, I totally get it. Because it took me a whole year of working. It was with my sister. She had gotten into it and she was becoming a practitioner before I did. And so she was doing the sessions on me and a whole year of my pain going away, my emotions going away, me becoming a better mom and still thinking this doesn't work. This isn't real. And so I was super resistant to it. And it's funny that I kept going. Um, and I would tell people, yet deep inside, I'm like, oh, this can't be for real. You can really just release an emotion like this. I know it's kind of a crazy story. So my epiphany moment is almost backwards. Like, I don't know that I really had that.
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
did have an epiphany moment that led me into it where I was like, something has to change.
Mm.
Something has to change. And that's where I went to therapy, and it was a disaster. Again, I'm not saying don't go, but for me, the one I was working with was not a good fit. I was not receiving the help I needed. And the last session I left more angry than when I went in. It
Mm.
was it was bad. And I
Mm.
had a screaming session with God after, and um that's where I did get my answer that therapy was not for me and that there was another path that I would be put on.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my defining moment, and then I fought it for a year. So
Okay. Wow, it's nice to hear though there is that moment where you can at least identify, and it's so funny because I've been saying this lately because I work with women and I work with families, and quite often women say to me that people give them advice and they go and they say this is the right advice. This is the right advice. And often it's like being able to understand, is this the right advice for me? Like, is therapy for me? Is this the right thing for me to do? And what I found for myself, but also what I found for other women that's been helpful is that if you can at least understand and identify what doesn't feel right and move away from that, then that's the start of moving towards what might be right for you, because everybody thinks that they're right about what they do and the modalities that they share and all the rest of it. But you had that moment where you were like, yeah, if you walked into a space that was supposed to be healing and you walked out of there feeling even worse than you did before, that's your, that they're your emotions saying, well, let's move away from that because that's not for me. And then that obviously was just that little pivot to get you moving towards what was right for you. And that's just my interpretation, so whether or not that feels right for you, but that kind of also just validates from me that I've been seeing this in women who have been saying, I don't know what's right, I don't know the right thing to do. And it's like, but do you know what's not, what you don't want to do and what doesn't feel right? Let's just move away from that. And I find that seems to make sense. And the other thing that I wanted to say in respects to that too is that often I talk to women about the difference between therapy and coaching, which is, I guess, because you're doing the coding, but you've got the coaching, sort of bringing the two in there. And I think that
Mhm.
certainly I say when your house is on fire, when you are in crisis and you actually need to establish yourself in a place of safety because your house is on fire, then therapy and traditional medical treatment can be great for you. But I think a lot of people do actually go into therapy when the house is already burnt down and they're just left with their ashes and they're wondering what to do with the ashes. But the therapy is more to just put out the flames and establish you in a place of safety. Whereas people go looking for that and they get to therapy and they're like, I just need to know what to do with my ashes. And I find that perhaps in those
Yeah.
times it's not that effective, and that's where something that's a little bit more towards of what you're doing and the coaching to help you decide what you're going to do with your ashes and move forward from there. Because I'm the same with you. I'm a health professional too, and I'm definitely encourage people to go when they need to establish themselves in a place of safety. But you're right, that's not for everyone either, so it's finding what doesn't work for you. That's beautiful. And so, how did you end up in working with the families too? Just briefly, that you start off with Mama Bear, who comes to you in a state of emotional or physical distress, and then how do you bring in the rest of the family? Because that's the tricky thing. Is it the partner who talks to the other one, or do they just bring them along, or have you got to do for two for one deal that's too good to refuse?
Oh, I should do that. But no, it's usually, well, here's the interesting part that's actually not 100% my track record, but more than not, is the wife hears of me. Although I've had a few where it's the husband hears of me, but the wife hears of me and it's kind of an ultimatum. Okay, you won't go to therapy
Uh-huh.
and you won't deal with your emotions and you won't change this. So you go talk to Shelby or I'm going to go talk to a lawyer or, I'm exiting in some way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's him that shows up first. And then
Right.
he's like, oh, this is all it is. This isn't therapy. I don't have to talk about my emotions. And he ends up bringing her in because she's like, what'd you do to my husband? So it's kind of funny. And then sometimes she is a client of mine and then she sends the rest of her family too. So I don't even advertise as families.
Mhm.
It just kind of happens. Like they sense that something's changing and it's not therapy. And some of them don't even have a clue what I do, but they're
Mm.
so desperate that something's got to change. And so they're
Yeah.
willing to try it. I know, kind of crazy because that's not what I set out to do, but
It's always the way though, isn't it? Because, we become this magnet for whatever it is that, that whatever they need. And then to be able to help them find what they need, I just love that. It's all a part. Like I still look back to and just go, oh, if I was to pick and choose, you would pick your own different path, but it's like the path chooses you for yourself as well as the people who are coming to you. That's just awesome. Look, I'm going to ask that question we were talking about before. How do people find you? If this kind of work resonates, do you just see people one on one and in person? Do you have an online service, or how can people get to know you and contact you, or even just get familiar with your work if they're interested?
right now I'm just doing one-on-one sessions. That's been keeping me busy, but honestly, it's been keeping me so busy that I'm like, I'm repeating myself over and over again. So my goal, um, in between all the things that I do is I want to take what I'm doing to social media
Uh-huh.
because I really do want to have a place where my clients, it's really more for my clients where I can say, go check out my Instagram page. I have it set up, but I haven't posted yet. This is my
Yes.
coaching tips for families because I'm really kind of shocked and saddened of how many families don't even know what a healthy family looks like at this point.
Mm, mm.
And they want that and they crave it, but they haven't had that example in their life. It's not like Hollywood has done us any favors or social media has, we've got that's not realistic. And then we get on social media and we see all these happy families. And I'm telling you right now, those happy families come in and they're a hot mess. So do not
Mm.
believe what you see on social media, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what I want to do is to be able to put some of those realistic, relatable steps that are doable of this is how you can start taking action to start having a positive impact in the family. And I'm probably making my life complicated here, but then not everybody resonates with emotion code, body code. So that will probably be on my other social media page that because sometimes I just need them separate. So
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
goal.
Yeah,
For now, just doing the in-person sessions
yeah.
and but now I'm seeing my path that, oh, this is needed. If I didn't have to
Yes.
repeat this 10 times
Yes.
and
Can
I
you
had
give
a
us,
resource.
yes. And I was just going to say, can you give us one tip that you can think of that might be something we can implement in our families today just to help us to be able to find that little place within that we can help to access, the person that we want to be, just that.
Yeah, you might not like it, but I will tell you.
I love statements that start like that. I'm like, oh, I'm open. That's the best place to be.
Because people are always like, how can I help my family? I'm like, the best thing that you can do to help your family is to heal yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that's the answer. But my kids are so stressed
Mm,
out, and my husband is struggling in his job. And there's all these excuses of why I can't heal myself because that takes too much time. But you're
mm,
already in the mess. And when you can just not pause, because no mom can really pause, no family can really pause.
mm.
But if we can just say, you know what, I'm going to take 6 to 8 weeks, I think, is a realistic time to start turning things in a good direction. That doesn't mean you're completely healed, but to get on some
Mm.
more solid footing
Yeah.
sounds like a long time. But when you can start there and start getting yourself centered and understand what's going on in you, you create space for others to heal because now your kids can even trust to come to you
Yeah.
and say, I've got this problem. Or, okay, I made a mistake and I'm going to trust that you're not going to lose it and we're going to work on this together. No teenager's going to say that, but that's their hope, right?
Yes.
So they don't even know how to verbalize that probably. But when they make a mistake, they want to know that you can help them navigate it
Yeah.
instead of immediately punish them for it.
Yeah.
And the same with your spouse. When you are okay, then others and let's face it, mom's the person that everybody goes to
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah.
And so when she's okay, then it starts to trickle out. So not the answer people like, but
That's the
really coming to
key.
terms with your
Mm.
emotions and what's behind that emotion and getting your needs met and sometimes dropping those expectations that we think are realistic, but nobody can even live up to them. Sometimes
Yeah.
that happens.
Oh, 100%. I find that's the biggest thing, the expectations and the word should. We do just have an idea of how we think things should be and it's ideal, but it's not helpful. And that really does sound like it is advice that people just go, heal myself to heal other people. And again, it's something that we hear and we go, yeah, that people say you can't pour from an empty cup, and they go, yeah, yeah, but is anyone filling up their own cup really? No, not really,
Yeah.
because of everything that you're saying. It's I don't have time because there's this fire I've got to put out and this fire I've got to put out. And meanwhile, you are up in flames yourself. So to be able to establish yourself in that place, then it does have that ripple effect, and it's powerful for everyone involved. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Shelby. It's just so lovely to talk to you about it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? We'll wrap up our conversation, or we covered a lot. You know.
We didn't even get to the whole mind body thing.
No, but unless there's something particular that you want to say in relation to that, like, um, I mean,
You know,
that's a whole other thing in
I mean, we
itself.
could totally dive into that. That could even be a topic for another time because that's a
Yeah.
fun topic too. But really, I mean, it's like I cannot emphasize it enough how important emotions are.
Hmm.
I mean, they really just are because emotions are what drive us. And you and I, you know, in our coaching trainings and stuff like that, we talk about circumstances being neutral or thoughts being neutral. And it's the emotion that makes you choose between two neutral thoughts.
Uh-huh.
And it's the emotion that makes you take action. It's
Yeah.
not the thought that makes you take the action, it's the emotion attached to the thought.
Yes.
Whether that serves us or whether that doesn't serve us, it's the emotion that drives us. So the emotions are so important to understand and start taking control of, because that's when we realize that our emotions are a choice and not just who we are or somebody else's fault that we responded that way.
Yeah.
We become, we get back into the driver's seat of our life
Yes.
and can start steering it where we want to go and then start choosing the thoughts behind it.
Yes. And actually living a conscious life, which
Yes.
which I do find that too with a lot of the women that I see. It's just like, but I can't, yeah, not being able to feel like they've got zero control. And that's what you're saying, is to be able to dial it down to access that place where you can consciously choose regardless of what's happening. And then how you show up in your daily life. It's pretty powerful work. And I guess so getting to that first point that you do with your clients is to try and get them to a place where they're open to that. Really, is that sort of the journey that they will start with, that they come in to just process and then having to go back and actually look at where those emotions came from?
It's kind of funny because there's either the woman that's like, I am so done. I don't care
Mm.
what you do. I just want this, like these emotions. I want to feel different. I'm ready to
Yeah,
let it
yeah,
go. And she'll say it just like that.
right.
And then there's the woman who is sick and in pain and can't move past it. And she's like, I was just told to come here because I got trapped emotions. It usually shows up on a biofeedback scanner of
Uh-huh.
some, and she's unsure, but she's tired of being sick. And so she's open up just enough to
Mm.
see what I'm doing. And I do get a lot of repeat customer or not customers, clients.
Mm.
So I can't be doing that bad, right? But
Yeah.
it's funny, the woman that is so ready to move forward and move past, you know, things that have happened. Usually after the first session, even at the end of the session, she's like, I feel lighter because
Mm.
we have taken 15 to 30 frequencies off of her body, literally.
Mm. Amazing.
Sometimes with the woman who's sick, it can take a little bit longer for her, but she also at this point has physical pain, regardless of whether or not that's connected to emotions. She's physically not feeling well, so she doesn't always see as quickly, you know, at the end of a session, she may or may not, but
Mm.
she really still sees quick shifting.
Mm. So you use the muscle testing, you use some biofeedback scanning, and then you've also got, have you got something else that you use about the vibrations or what's the with the music that I know that you've used before and actually frequencies for people to listen to shift what's happening on the inside.
Yeah, that is
Clarify
the
that because that just didn't
feedback
make sense.
scanner.
Okay.
That's right.
Right.
I did. Oh, that was a long time ago. So that's the biofeedback scanner that I use. That's the AO scan.
Ah,
And that's really awesome because it's a 10-second voice clip and it will generate pages and pages of stuff you don't want to know about yourself. Um, of emotions and what's going on in your body and what you're deficient in. That's like a whole conversation.
yeah,
Like
yes,
we
yeah.
should talk about that. But it is interesting that you bring that up because in the emotional component, because emotions are a frequency, it sends the counteracting frequency into music. And so it's kind of hidden in the music. You can hear the tones if you listen carefully and you could turn them up too, but it's canceling out the emotion like this, stopping that frequency in its track instead of me muscle testing to release it. So again, there's lots of ways to release emotions. Yoga does it. You know, some of the
Mm,
things you do release
mm,
it. So finding that fit,
yep.
what works for you, or even a combination, because even
Yeah.
I need different things at different times.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
can release my own emotions, you know. So,
That's
but
amazing.
still there are times when I need other things too. So
Yeah.
keep looking
Yep.
and finding what fits for you.
Yes, one. That's why I'm here too, having these sorts of conversations so that people can see that there are so many other ways of being able to heal and move through whatever they need to move through to find what does actually work for them. So we could have so many conversations. I'm sure. Let's chat again for sure, Shelby. But thank you so much for today and sharing all of that. And I think that the most important message that I think I got was that beautiful nugget about healing yourself and looking within and being able to realize that it's your hands on the steering wheel and the effect that that has by actually taking that time for yourself, that effect that that has on everybody else around you, and the healing that that can have on a greater level. I think is so important. And I hope that someone out there has heard that and realized that it is time. And if it's time, you can contact Shelby. And hopefully, I'm going to have some information in the description below, of course, and from myself too. So I thank you so much for your time today. And let's have another chat again soon. All
We
right.
should.